Exposed, 5 haunting true tales of eerie shadows watching you in the night. In the quaint town of Maplewood, the twilit streets held secrets that whispered in the wind. Shadows flickered against the cracked windows of the old houses. It was said that on certain nights, you could feel eyes on your back, a sensation so uncanny it raised the hair on your neck. The folklore was rich, specters watching, long-forgotten souls trapped in a time loop, condemned to keep vigil over the living. Lisa, a single mother to her curious son Max, had brushed off the ghost stories, dismissing them as fanciful tales to entertain children. That is, until one crisp October evening when life as she knew it was tested. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of burnt orange and deep indigo. Inside their cozy living room, Lisa and Max snuggled under a patchwork blanket, the gold swirls of autumn leaves settling outside. "Mom, do you think ghosts are real?" Max's wide eyes sparkled with genuine curiosity as he recounted his latest science project on ectoplasm. She chuckled, ruffling his hair, but unease lurked just beneath her laughter. Every ghost story had a grain of truth, and she'd be lying if she said the shadows outside didn't make her heart quicken. Suddenly, a scream cut through the evening, a high-pitched wail that shattered their quiet. Max's face drained of color as he pointed at the window, the dim light casting eerie shapes on his cheeks. "Mom, look! What's out there?" Shadows danced like grotesque marionettes, flickering in and out of sight. The voices that had been a faint whisper now grew into a dreadful chorus, urging her to peer outside. Fear knotted in her chest. She approached the window, heart pounding like a war drum. Then, that moment turned into chaos. Lisa squinted into the gathering darkness, her breath catching in her throat as some presence seemed to turn its gaze upon her. Exhaustion and terror clashed, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. Desperate to shield Max from the creeping dread, Lisa's instincts kicked in. It was about to become a night of revelations. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In a flurry of instinct, Lisa grabbed her phone and dialed the neighbors. She reached out to a ragtag group of locals, each wrestling their own demons, including her estranged brother Jake, a military veteran scarred by memories he'd rather forget. As they gathered in her warm, cluttered living room under the flickering light, conversations morphed into hushed whispers of long-buried town myths and familial legacies. As the tales unfurled, it became clear that each neighbor, too, carried invisible chains linking them to those shadows. "Do you think they know?" Jake's voice was gravelly, a hardened shell ready to crack. Shadows were no longer just figments of imagination, they were threats woven into the fabric of Maplewood, lurking behind their secrets. Lisa felt an electric urgency, piecing together scraps of family history, digging up buried truths that kept her up at night. Who else felt the pull of those watching eyes? Just as realization dawned, another scream sliced through the night, an urgent plea echoing far too close to home. As eerie winds whipped around the house, Lisa's determination burned brighter. Would she unveil the hidden secrets before it all came crashing down? The shadows were closing in, but Luke's connection to Jake hinted at something deeper. What haunted history intertwined not just her own bloodline but the entire town? The air thickened with tension, and the weight of the night poised them. On the brink of discovery, leaving Lisa only a heartbeat away from unlocking the mystery. The echo of that scream haunted Lisa, wrapping around her like a cold scarf, chilling her to the bone. The neighbors had fallen silent, each of them shifting nervously in the dim light of her living room, their faces reflecting both fear and determination. She could see it in their eyes, the shadows had become far too real. Who was that? Max's voice trembled, breaking the unease. His small frame pressed tightly against her side, seeking comfort in the warmth of her presence. Lisa brushed a finger through his hair, stifling her own panic as it bubbled under the surface. Jake was the first to speak, his tone heavy with a mix of urgency and dread. I think it came from the old Miller house. Instinctively, they all turned to glance out the window, the dark silhouette looming ominously against the moonlight. The neighborhood kids had always dared one another to approach that house, long believed to be cursed, a ghostly relic of something grave. Lisa swallowed hard. The town legends crammed themselves into her mind, tightening her chest, but now they felt tangible, pressing on the walls like the shadows beyond. We need to call the police, she said, panic rising in her voice. Too late for that, Jake interjected, his eyes narrowing as if he knew something they didn't. They won't understand. They never do. We have to see for ourselves. The group hesitated, torn between fear and the need for answers. A chilly wind seeped through the cracked window, rustling the old curtains, almost beckoning them to act. Lisa felt the pull. It was as if the specters were calling them, hungry for release. No. We stay together, she commanded, her protectiveness for Max surging through her veins like wildfire. We'll figure out what's going on, together. Then let us move fast, Jake said, his voice steadying the group. We go to the Miller house, but we don't split up. Stay close. With hearts racing, the small band of neighbors grabbed flashlights, their beams slicing through the thickening darkness as they moved out into the night. The path to the Miller house was strewn with dead leaves that crunched underfoot, whispering secrets that had long been buried. Lisa kept Max's small hand in hers, squeezing it tightly, reassuring herself as much as him. Each footfall echoed ominously in the thick silence, punctuated only by the rustling leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. They approached the decaying structure, its windows like vacant eyes watching them. Inside, the air was thick and foreboding, the smell of damp wood and mold wafting through the dusty corridors. Shadows clung to the corners, flickering with their flashlights as whispers began to coil around them, indistinct yet pressing, like a warning they couldn't decipher. Did you hear that? One of the neighbors gasped, and the entire group froze. From somewhere deep inside the house, the sound of a low moan reverberated through the walls. It sent chills racing up Lisa's spine. Who is that? Max whispered, fear radiating from him like an electric shock. Lisa knelt, meeting his frightened gaze. We'll find out. Together, she vowed, though her own heart felt like it might burst. As they pushed further into the house, the cries grew louder, becoming a cacophony of terror that pressed against their eardrums. Max squeezed her hand tighter, stumbling as they moved toward the source. Lisa's pulse quickened. This wasn't just a folklore tale anymore, it was a chilling reality. Then, they stumbled into the living room, a space lost to time, furniture covered in dusty sheets, the air stagnant. Suddenly, out of the shadows, came a figure, a woman, wailing, her eyes empty sockets dripping with darkness. They froze, the air thick with terror. Was she a trapped soul called forth from their nightmares? Or something more malevolent? As Lisa's scream rose, the house seemed to shudder around them, and the shadows shifted, coalescing into something fierce and unforgiving. What had they awakened? Before they could find an answer, darkness enveloped them, drowning out the last flickers of light, plunging them into a pitch-black abyss. Lisa's heart raced. She couldn't lose Max. They needed to find a way out, but first, they had to survive this encounter. But what awaited them beyond that darkness was something none of them could ever prepare for. Lisa gasped, the pitch blackness pressing against her, suffocating her like a thick fog. She clutched Max tightly, her fingers digging into his small hand. We're okay, Max. We'll get out of this, she whispered, though fear twisted her stomach into knots. The ominous moaning still reverberated, a sinister melody that danced through the shadows. It filled the dark room, echoing off the walls, bouncing back like a taunt. Suddenly, a chilling breeze cut through the air, lifting a corner of an old sheet that covered a nearby armchair. Stay close, Jake urged, his voice shaky but striving for assurance. He flicked his flashlight around, the beams skimming over the walls coated in peeling paint. The shadows seemed to come alive, writhing against the light in a grotesque ballet. What was that? Another neighbor asked, her breath coming out in ragged bursts. They were all just as terrified as Lisa felt inside. Keep moving, Lisa said, determination pushing back her terror. They had to find the source of that cry. Something compelled her forward. For every step they took, the wailing grew louder, twisting into desperate pleas. Please help me, came the faint echoes from somewhere deeper inside the house. The voice was fragile, pleading a sound from the other side of the veil. Was it the spirit of the woman they'd seen, or something else altogether? With every pulse of her heart, dread soared. We can't leave her, she said, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. What if it's a trap? Max whispered, his voice trembling. The shadows seemed to pull him closer to the abyss, and Lisa hesitated, fear clawing at her heart. I know, but we can't abandon her, Lisa replied, resolve hardening in her chest. If there's even a chance it's real, we owe it to her. They crept down the narrow hall, the faint light from their flashlights barely revealing the outlines of dusty frames that once held memories. And then, just ahead a door, slightly ajar, a sliver of dim light spilling out, Lisa pushed it open, her breath caught in her throat. The room inside was illuminated by an odd soft glow, illuminating a circle of dirt with strange symbols drawn in the dust. On the center of the circle lay an old, cracked mirror, its surface marred yet reflecting something unsettling. Max, don't go near it. Lisa shouted, panic surging as she felt him drifting toward the mirror, as if it pulled him in with an invisible force. But he murmured, a strange light dancing in his eyes. Look closer, what's in there? Jake stepped forward, his face a mask of confusion. There's something moving. His voice faltered, disbelief creeping in. Suddenly, the air thickened, vibrating with tension. Shadows began to swirl around the room, their movement like smoke-dark tendrils reaching outwards, hungry. Lisa felt the coldness creep back, wrapping around her and sending chills down her spine. Without warning, the mirror shimmered, and a translucent figure emerged, the visage of the woman they saw earlier. Her empty gaze pierced through them, her mouth opening in a silent scream, a wave of anguish washing over the room like a tidal wave. Run! Yelled Jake, panic flooding his voice. The room shattered into chaos as the shadows lunged, clawing at them, whispering horrors that twisted their thoughts. The group turned, stumbling back down the hallway, but the shadows surged forward, blocking their escape. It's too late. The whispers groaned, fear itself embodied, they were trapped, a terror more real than any ghost story swirling around them like a storm of lost souls. Max! Hold on! Lisa cried, her heart ready to break. The darkness pressed in from all sides, threatening to consume them whole. Their breaths came fast, every heartbeat echoing the rush of dread. There was no way forward, only walls of shadows closing in around them. As panic twisted her gut, Lisa spotted a glimmer of hope, a back door, ajar. This way! She shouted, darting toward the light. But what would happen if they made it through? What lay beyond the threshold? Just as they reached the door, the shadows lunged, grabbing at their ankles. Lisa's heartbeat thundered as she tried to push through, desperation fueling her every movement. Then, she heard it, the whispered warning that echoed from the darkness. Not yet. What did that mean? Lisa's heart raced as she pushed against the door, her palms slick with sweat. It creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway beyond. Hope flickered, but the shadows clawed at her ankles, holding her back like a vice. Help! Max screamed, his voice high-pitched, filled with terror. She felt his tiny fingers slipping from her grip. Max, hold on! She shouted, her throat dry, panic clawing at her chest. She yanked hard, pulling him close again. The cold shadows wrapped tighter, intertwining like frigid snakes. Lisa could feel their icy breath against her skin, whispering secrets meant to chill her soul. Go! Jake urged, launching forward through the door past her, his flashlight beam trembling in the dark. Lisa hesitated, fear pinching her stomach. What if they were leaving behind the woman? The voice, was it real or a trap? Yet, they had no choice. They barreled through the door, and she tugged Max along, abandoning the shadows that stretched across the threshold. The hallway opened wide, revealing the remnants of family photographs, their faces blurred and warped, as though the past was nothing but fragments of memories swallowed by time. Which way now? Jake shot a look behind them. The shadows shifted, coiling in the doorway like a living entity. Their whispering escalated, a haunting chorus urging them to retreat. Keep going. Lisa urged, breathing heavily, dread hanging thick in the air. We need to find another way out. They moved down the hallway, their footsteps quickening, and a chill ran through her like icy fingers. The voices grew louder, then faded, replaced by the slow creaking of the house around them, as if it were alive. Shadows flitted across the walls, twisting, distorting, blending into the flickering light. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the air, shaking the walls. They all jumped, eyes wide, breathing shallow. What was that? Max whimpered, glancing back, eyes darting with fear. Keep moving. Jake urged again, pulling Max closer. Lisa stood frozen, the reality of what they were facing closing in. The shadows weren't just lurking, they were strategizing, ready to pounce. They stumbled into another room, this one filled with decrepit furniture tossed about carelessly. A musty odor filled the air, making her stomach churn. This place is terrible, she said, a sense of urgency fueling her voice. Look. Max pointed toward a window at the far end. There's light. Okay, let us get there. Jake said, determination replacing fear. As they rushed to the window, Lisa's heart beat like a drum in her chest. Each footfall echoed against the dusky surroundings, blending with sinister whispers that tickled her ear, clawing at her sanity. The light shimmered invitingly, but dread licked at her heels, making her hesitate. Come on. Jake urged, pushing forward, but the shadows writhed behind them, hungry for escape. In a moment of clarity mixed with fear, Lisa turned back toward the doorway. Do you think we can distract them? Jake frowned. What do you mean? If we can lure them away, we can make it to the light. Max looked between them, confusion and terror etched on his face. What if it traps us instead? Lisa felt the pull of the darkness, but the flickering light promised safety. I don't know. We need to try. Before Jake could object, she grabbed a dusty old chair from the side, flinging it toward the door. It crashed loudly, causing the shadows to lurch, their whispers curling in alarm as they turned toward the source of the noise. Now! Go! She yelled, and they sprinted toward the window, the warm light beckoning them closer, but just as they reached the window's edge, the shadows surged back, unleashing a piercing shriek that ruptured the air, chilling them to the bones. The temperature plummeted, and Lisa felt a grip encircle her heart. Their escape hung in the balance, but the window was almost within reach. Faster! She screamed, racing against the looming darkness poised to drag them back. With the shadows closing in, Lisa leaped towards the light. Would it lead them to freedom, or to something more sinister? As they approached the window, the remnants of the woman's anguished cry echoed once more, "Help me please!" Each word cut deeper, shadows twisting around them like a noose, and Lisa faced a choice: risk the window, or turn back for a chance to save a lost soul. What would she choose? The moment Lisa launched into the light, she felt an electric jolt shake her as the shadows screamed behind her, a deafening roar that tore through the air like a gust of frigid wind. The warmth of the light wrapped around her like a protective blanket, but it felt wrong. It was a mocking glow against the chilling cries of the forgotten woman, lingering in her ears pleading. Look out! Jake shouted from behind her, yanking her wrist and pulling her back as the shadows surged forward, their dark fingers clawing at her heels. The light didn't save them, it only highlighted their despair. They stumbled into the room just beyond the window, a small, cramped space overflowing with dust and memories of lives once lived, now vacant. A barely there beam broke through the cracked glass, illuminating the two torn-faced figures that stood frozen at the farthest corner, ghostly children whose eyes shimmered with the weight of ages. I can't move," Max stuttered, his small hands trembling as he clutched Lisa's leg. "Stay close." Lisa breathed, instinctively positioning herself in front of him. Jake nodded, his knuckles white as he gripped the frame of the window, gauging their next move. The children began to hum softly, a haunting melody that wrapped around them, saturating the air with an eerie calm that pressed against her chest. Lisa fought against the tendrils of the song that tried to pull her in. There was something enchanting yet perilous about their sad tune. "Why are they singing?" Max asked, terror etched into his voice. "It's a way to keep you here," Lisa replied, her voice just above a whisper. "We have to resist it." Jake was entranced, staring at the children as if they held the key to his liberation. "What if they can help us?" he uttered, the desperation seeping into his words. "No," Lisa snapped. "It's a trap." The shadows grew restless in reaction to her outburst. They coiled tighter around her legs, whispering words she couldn't quite catch but felt sinking deep into her brain, stirring her doubts. They wanted to gnaw at her resolve, to twist her thoughts and make her forget her purpose. Then, a loud crack thundered from the corner where the children stood, and the wall behind them splintered open. A dark void gaped wide, pulling objects from the room into its depth, scattering the remnants of what once was. "Run!" Jake cried, urgency igniting his voice. He turned to the window, but it was impossible. The shadows lunged in a frenzy, blocking their exit as if the house itself conspired against them. Lisa grabbed Max's hand, dragging him toward the far wall instead, where the floor splintered with each breath they took. The children's song grew louder, morphing into an anguished wail that resonated within the bones of the house, drowning out the whispers of the shadows. "Help us please," their voices echoed, bouncing off the walls, twisting the atmosphere surrounding them into a suffocating grip. "We can't let them win," Lisa shouted, her own resolve ignited. She pulled Max to her chest, holding tight. "We need to break out. Climb up." As they surged toward the gaping hole in the wall, the shadows clawed at her back, desperate to bring her back into their fold. Lisa could feel the chilling grip of despair creeping up her spine. "Lisa!" Jake called, panic rising in his voice. He was struggling against the darkness, the weight of despair threatening to swallow him whole. Lisa glanced back, his eyes were wide with fear, desperation dancing with the flickers of bravery, and a dark corner of her heart ached for the decision she had to make. "Jake! Grab the kids!" But before she could finish, the void behind the children began to pulse, a heartbeat echoing in the emptiness. "Come with me." The children beckoned, their fingers stretched toward the abyss, enticing but terrifying. Would they save them or lead them to doom? In that chilling moment, a choice loomed before Lisa, and the stakes tore at her gut. Could she trust the flickering light, or were the shadows right, the children only another trap? "Choose!" she shouted, but the answer hovered in the air. Heavy and unbearable. The shadows surged with fierce urgency, and Lisa felt the hourglass tipping. Would they break free, or would the darkness swallow them whole? The decision lingered, just as the window of escape shattered into shards of glass and the ominous darkness gathered its final breath, ready to close in around them. Lisa's heart pounded like a drum as she stood at the precipice of the decision. Shadows swirled around her, their whispers growing louder, growling like a pack of wolves hungry for their next meal. Could any of them truly escape this dreadful fate? "Lisa! We have to go." Jake's voice broke through the chaos, urgent and raw. He lunged toward the children, reaching out with both hands, but the shadows writhed hungrily, drawing him back. It was as if the darkness had a will of its own, a malevolent force bent on holding them captive. "I can't leave you!" Lisa screamed, her voice nearly lost in the cacophony. She turned, gripping Max tightly as the child's wide eyes reflected panic, mirroring her own. "Please help us," the children's melody twisted into a horrific plea. Their voices echoed in the room like a ghostly chant, wrapping around Lisa, urging her to move forward, enticing her with promises of salvation. It hung like a seductive fruit, ripe and too easy to pick. Through clenched teeth, Lisa whispered, "Don't listen. It's a ruse." She darted another glance at Jake. He was slipping, his feet barely firm as despair clawed its way up his legs, inching toward his heart. They were all teetering on the edge of madness, and the darkness craved their surrender, but before she could make a decision, a sharp crackling sound sliced through the air, as if someone had torn a page from a book. The shadows flinched, and for a moment, the area around Lisa brightened, illuminating the room in ghostly white. "Now!" Lisa shouted. She pulled Max toward the gaping hole, a ragged escape route that seemed to pulse as if alive. They needed to jump, but the void beckoned with an allure that was impossible to ignore. It shimmered, promising relief from the weight of despair. "Lisa!" Jake's cry sent chills down her spine. He was fighting back, but the shadows were relentless. She felt the fabric of their connection fraying, slipping between her fingers like sand in an hourglass. "You can do it," she encouraged him, feeling her voice quiver. "We have to trust each other." Just then, the children's faces contorted, their innocent features twisting into grotesque masks of sorrow. "Stay please," their voices fused into one, a cacophony of need that threatened to unravel Lisa's resolve. "I can't." Jake's voice trembled as he wrestled with despair. Shadows clawed at him, dragging him further into their depths. She could see it in his eyes, the flicker of a dying flame, desperately trying to ignite. "Jump!" Lisa cried, making a choice that would stain her heart forever. She released Max's hand, shoving him toward the wall. He stumbled but didn't fall. "Now!" In that breathless moment, Lisa turned, the agony building within her as she lunged toward Jake, grasping for him. But the shadows surged, merging into a thick tendril that wrapped around Jake's ankle. He fell to the floor with a heavy thud, his eyes wide with fear. "Run, Lisa!" His command rang out, filled with a strength that broke through the swirling chaos. Before despair consumed them both, Lisa sprinted toward the hole. She leaped, propelled by sheer instinct, diving headfirst into the unknown, praying Jake would follow. The moment she plunged into the dark, it felt as if time suspended. A cool numbness embraced her, pulling her deeper while echoing Jake's shout only to become submerged in silence. She gasped, the air knocked out of her lungs as the darkness surrounded her like an abyss, and then, an excruciatingly bright light pierced the void. "Lisa!" A voice echoed through the brilliance. She squinted, trying to make sense of where she was, her hand instinctively reaching out. "Jake!" Just beyond the gleaming expanse, shadows flitted at the edges of her vision, and dread pooled in her stomach as she sensed their grief-laden presence once more. As Lisa's heart raced, she realized that escape wasn't guaranteed. The darkness lurked, waiting for a moment of weakness, ready to ensnare them when they could least afford it. "Lisa! Move!" Jake was there, urgency in his eyes. But was he even close, or was this another illusion? In that manic silence, she faced the haunting uncertainty of the impenetrable dark. Was their fight only beginning? The shadows shifted, and a grotesque form began to emerge from the light, revealing a face Lisa knew all too well. A visage of terror and grief. "Help us," it whispered, a ghostly echo of the children. Would the reunion offer hope, or would it seal their fate? The air crackled with anticipation, and Lisa felt the weight of truth settle over her like a thick fog, cutting her breath short. In that moment, she realized the darkness wasn't finished with them yet. "Lisa! Don't just stand there." Jake's voice cut through the thick tension. Fear flashed in his eyes as he caught sight of the figure emerging from the brilliance. It was becoming clearer, transforming from a mere shadow into something more tangible. "Turn away!" Lisa screamed, her heart racing wildly, echoing the panic that gripped her throat. She knew that face, though it twisted with sorrow. The little girl, once so full of life, now seemed like a ghost tethered to despair. Lisa, the apparition whispered, its voice soft yet chilling, merging with the essence of all the children they had encountered. "You promised to help, don't believe her." Jake shouted, the urgency in his tone reverberating in the air. "It's not real. We need to keep moving." Lisa felt the fabric of her resolve tearing. The hunger in the shadows around her intensified, their presence creeping closer, wrapping around her as if testing the walls of her determination. Yet there was an ache deep within her, the familiar pull of obligation she couldn't ignore. "Help us please," the whispers resonated from the figure, tugging at Lisa's heart with an insistent grasp. The shadows shifted around them, their form undulating like waves on a stormy sea. Each flicker felt like a breath, almost alive, but Lisa instinctively knew this was a trap. They were luring her back into helplessness, into a cycle of misery and regret. "Go, Lisa," Jake urged, taking a step closer to her, eyes wide with desperation. "We can't let it take you." And then, with a sudden jolt, the figure morphed again, revealing not just one child, but a chorus of faces, each reflecting the same sorrow, the same plea for help. They reached out, fingers stretching toward Lisa in a desperate semblance of connection. "Stay with us, we need you," they chanted, their voices weaving into a haunting melody that filled her ears and resonated in her bones. "Shut up," Lisa shouted, wrenching herself back from the prying tendrils of despair wrapped around her thoughts. She fought to silence the growing ache within her, the guilt that gnawed at her core. The shadows surged closer, malicious eyes sparkling with delight at her turmoil. "Lisa, please." Jake's voice snapped her back. His fear coursed through her, tethering her to the present. His form twisted in the shimmering light, adjusting the distance as he fought against the shadows threatening to consume them both. As the figures of the children twisted into more grotesque forms, the air thickened with dread. Lisa could feel her resolve starting to crack. Was there a point to fight if their plea was genuine? The words echoed in her mind, a chilling echo in the empty recesses of her heart. "Lisa. We need to go." Jake yelled again, shaking her as panic seeped into his voice. Suddenly, the light flickered, pulsating as if it were alive. Stepping closer, she could see beyond the ghastly faces, flitting shadows hiding something hidden beneath the anguish. With a rush of courage, Lisa stepped forward, realizing there was more at play here. The shadows weren't just enemies, they held secrets. "What do you want?" she shouted, her voice trembling but strong. The children stopped, their faces no longer distorted but brilliant in their clarity, as if waiting for an answer. This was the moment she had to confront whatever reality this was, no matter how painful the truth, but before they could respond, the dark tendrils whipped violently at her feet, pulling her back. Lisa stumbled, the light dimming rapidly. "Jake!" The panic surged in her chest. His face was crumpling, the shadows edging nearer, feeding on their fright and despair. The fight was slipping away, snatching her hopes out of reach. With one last embrace of determination, Lisa lunged towards the fading faces of the children. "I will help you," she screamed into the abyss, a declaration that could either save them or seal their doom, and as the shadows surged to reclaim her, all she could do was hope that this choice wouldn't trap her in eternal darkness. What truth was lurking, waiting just beneath the surface of tragedy? As she plunged deeper into the turmoil, she knew their fates were inextricably linked and the greater horror awaited just beyond the darkness. The shadows tightened their grip around Lisa, their cold tendrils snatching at her ankles as if trying to pull her into a void where light dared not shine. She felt the weight of their despair pressing in on her, smothering her thoughts and amplifying her fears. The haunting faces of children loomed before her, etched with longing and desperation. "Don't let it take you." Jake's voice echoed through the haze, but it was growing weaker, drowning beneath the swell of sorrow that threatened to consume them both. The ragged whispers from the shrouded figures swirled around her, creating a vortex of grief that tugged at her heartstrings. "Help us, we need you," they were relentless, a symphony of bad memories and broken promises. Each word felt like a dagger, pushing her to the edge of her sanity. "No!" she shouted, furiously shaking her head as if she could dispel the chaos with simple gestures. But the more she resisted, the stronger their call became, a siren song filled with the pain of lost hope. It was captivating. It made her want to surrender, to give in to the responsibility that twisted in her gut. Surrounded by their cries, something shifted within the undulating darkness. The shadows transformed again, morphing into scenes from her life, moments where she could have made a difference but chose to look away. Faces of friends, lovers, and fleeting acquaintances drifted past her like specters. Each one had left a scar, and now they formed a tapestry of guilt that enveloped her. She felt suffocated, drowning in an ocean of regret. "Lisa," a soft voice emerged from the confusion, familiar yet distant. It was her mother, smiling and then fading into a look of despair, her eyes filled with unspoken questions. "No, no, please." The sound of her own voice felt foreign, a desperate plea lost in the clamor around her. She fought against the tide, trying to break free, but memories twisted like barbed wire around her thoughts. "Take her," a whisper hissed among the shadows. "She can help us. She promised, remember? Don't listen to them." Jake's words ricocheted off the walls of her mind, overworked and fraying at the edges. "They want to use you." With a surge of energy, Lisa lunged forward, breaking the grip of darkness just enough to glance at Jake. His face was taut with worry, a flicker of hope daubed against the stark fear in his eyes. In that moment, Jake wasn't just her friend, he was her anchor, her lifeline to reality. "Help us," came the chorus again, louder, louder, drowning out the chaos of her thoughts. "You promised." "Stop!" Lisa screamed, her voice ripping through the chorus. "What do you want from me?" The children's faces brightened, momentarily clear in the illumination of her determination. For a brief heartbeat, their expressions shifted from longing to clarity, as if her own indignation was unveiling the truth hidden in their grief. But then the shadows shuddered violently, collapsing around her in a surge of rage. "You will never escape," they shrieked in unison, and the tendrils tightened, suffocating her. She clawed at the air, gasping for breath, filled with dread at the thought of losing herself to this nightmare. Everything around her dimmed, and for a moment, she began to feel the allure of the darkness wrapping around her, pulling her closer to the despondent children who seemed relieved at her impending surrender. But Jake was there, squeezing her hand tight, grounding her even as the shadows writhed. "We can find a way out, Lisa. I know it." She turned, meeting his fierce resolve with her own. They were together, they had to believe they could fight against this unimaginable evil. It would take everything they had, but they owed it to the ghosts and to themselves. As their connection surged like a spark in the choking darkness, the shadows recoiled, momentarily daunted. Something shifted in the air, a crack forming in the suffocating atmosphere, a possibility, a sliver of hope. "Then let us end this," Lisa shouted, her voice steady now, rising above the cacophony of despair. "Together." But even as she felt the power of their combined wills course through her, the lurking darkness whispered a warning that chilled her to the core. What you seek may not be what you wish, for what truth awaited them beyond this threshold of shadows. Just when it seemed the light might return, a new terror loomed. Lisa's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her chest as she felt the shadows waging war against her newfound determination. The tendrils thrashed wildly, threatening to ensnare her once more, but she grasped Jake's hand tighter, their fingers weaving together like a lifeline. "Stay focused on me," Jake urged, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Whatever happens, don't let them distract you." Their surroundings warped, flickering like a faulty film reel. Dreamlike and disjointed, fleeting images cut in and out, children playing in a sunlit field, laughter echoing, only to be replaced by cries dripping with sorrow. Shadows darted in and out, dancing on edges of her vision before fading into nothingness. "Help us!" The children cried again, their voices melding together in a haunting melody that felt achingly familiar yet foreign. It tugged at her heart, bolstering her desire to reach out, to comfort. "No!" She screamed, summoning every ounce of willpower. What do you really want? Who are you? The air thickened, the oppressive darkness agony against her skin. You'll find what you seek, Lisa, if you dare. A figure emerged from the depths, swirling in shadows, its eyes glinting with malice. It was towering, an echo of a child but shrouded in a haze of sorrow-grief incarnate. You promised to help us, remember? Shivering, Lisa shook her head vigorously. I don't know what you mean. The figure floated closer, and in that moment, recognition dawned, a dim flash of her own past. It was her sister, Emily, a specter of the hurt she couldn't face. You abandoned us, Lisa. You left them, it whispered, dripping accusation. No. I didn't mean to. Tears pooled in her eyes, her voice choking on remorse. I thought you were. The specter lunged, the swirling darkness tightening around her again. Memory and shadow entwined to stifle her breath, suffocating her hopes. Join us. Tell the world our story. Lisa. Jake's shout sliced through the fog like a knife, his grip unyielding. Fight. I want to let you go. She locked eyes with him, and an ember of defiance ignited within her. You want a story? She shouted back into the abyss, anger boiling over. Then let us get it right. Fusing her voice with Jake's, they shouted together, a powerful unison against the shadows. We are not afraid. We are not your pawns. The darkness writhed, screeching in fury, as if struck by their refusal to yield. You dare speak against us? Yes. Lisa felt a rush of adrenaline, a boost of energy igniting the air around them. You think you own us? You think guilt binds us? You're mistaken. The shadow child recoiled, its figure flickering under their combined strength. You're just as broken, just as lost. It hissed, panic flickering in its eyes. No. We can rise. Lisa yelled, hope swelling as she pushed back, latching onto the memories of laughter and warmth that once filled her heart instead. We choose to break free. With a force she didn't know she possessed, Lisa focused on the crack in the darkness they had harnessed together. Light flared like a beacon, slicing through the shadows, illuminating the faces of the lost children. But as the brilliance spread, a loud roar erupted from the depths of chaos, drowning out their voices. Foolish humans. It boomed. You have no idea what you are awakening. Before they could process the warning, an unseen force rushed toward them, a wave of darkness surging with unbridled wrath. Hang on. Jake yelled, just as the world exploded around them, a cacophonous blend of screams and silence. In that fracturing moment, as shadows closed in and light flickered, the question screamed in her mind, what horrors lurked beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed? As they spiraled into the abyss, Lisa's heart sank. Would they discover the truth, or were they diving deeper into a nightmare beyond their comprehension? The shadows roared in fury, their wails intertwining with the sound of cracking wood and splintering glass. Lisa clutched Max's hand tightly, desperate to keep him safe as they plummeted into the unknown. A thick darkness enveloped them, sweeping them away from the broken remnants of the house, into a space void of both light and comfort. But then, in that endless expanse of shadow, a flicker ignited, tiny but fierce, a spark of hope that refused to die. Lisa felt it surge through her, carrying with it a tidal wave of determination. We can beat this. She shouted, her voice cutting through the obsidian silence. Together. Jake echoed, his presence grounding her amidst the pandemonium. Suddenly, like wind fanning a flame, a rush of light flooded their surroundings. As it enveloped them, the shadows recoiled, hissing and screeching at the approaching brightness. It felt like a battle of wills, the darkness resisting with all its might while hope flowed steadily forward. Keep moving toward the light. Jake commanded, eyes blazing with fierce defiance. Lisa pulled Max along, her heart racing but her resolve unwavering. She didn't care what lay ahead, she would protect Max, protect Jake, and protect every lost soul tangled in that nightmarish shadow. They ran as if each step was a defiance against their fate, tearing through the dark until they reached the luminescent core. The brightness burst forth, spilling into the void like the dawn breaking through night. It illuminated the haggard faces of the children they had encountered, their expressions shifting from despair to determination, merging with their own light, transforming the dark maw into a tapestry of warmth, anchored in resilience. "Help us!" the children chorused, their voices different now, filled with strength and solidarity rather than dread. They began to pull themselves through the light, forming a chain of unyielding purity. The shadows shrank back, contorting with rage. "Stand firm!" Lisa cried. Together, their voices intertwined, drowning the shadows in a choir of persistence. It was no longer about saving one soul, it was about freeing them all, fighting against the weight of grief that had long suppressed their stories. With a final push fueled by hope and the memories of each lost child, the light exploded, washing over them in a cascade of warmth and brilliance. The shadows ripped apart with anguished screams, swallowed by the glow, as though reality itself was reaffirming their refusal to be shackled by the past. And then silence. Lisa blinked as she found herself standing outside the Miller house, the chill of autumn air brushing against her skin. She looked around, eyes wide. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of dawn, a soft glow replacing the malevolent darkness of the night. "Mom!" Max cried, bursting into tears and wrapping his arms around her waist. She stooped, pulling him close, feeling the warmth of his little form grounding her in reality. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave, though the memories of their harrowing journey still tightened her throat. Jake stepped forward, eyes alight with surprise and relief. "We did it," he whispered, disbelief spilling from each trembling breath. "Yeah, we did," Lisa replied, wiping the rain of reality from her cheeks. They turned together toward the house, the shadows now mere echoes on the edges of their memories. Somehow, they had freed the children. The weight of the past still resided in their minds, but it no longer had power over them. It was time to face their fears and heal the wounds that had festered for so long. "Let us go home," she whispered to Max, lifting him high into the air, even as her heart vowed never to forget those they had left behind. As they made their way down the familiar streets of Maplewood, each step radiated renewed purpose, a commitment to share their story and honor those souls trapped in the cycle of despair. In the brightening dawn, Lisa turned back once more toward the Miller house, a smile crackling on her lips. Freedom glinted back at her, ghosts freed, and the shadows muted. They would all rise together, the past would no longer dictate their future. Surrounded by love, hope, and the promise of renewal, they stepped forward. The weight lifted, they could finally breathe easy, and if there was a lesson here, it was larger than the shadows they had faced. It was about the power of connection, of resolve, of not facing darkness alone. So, if you're watching from wherever you are, know this, it's your story too. You have the power to defeat the shadows lurking in your own life. Make that choice today. Now, before you go, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and uplift you. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, it makes all the difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us spread the light.